What keeps you up at night?
What keeps me up at night is probably these days the ISIL threat in the homeland, and I worry very much about what I can't see. That's what keeps me up. If you imagine a nationwide haystack, we're trying to find needles in that haystack, and a lot of those needles are invisible to us, either because of the way in which they're communicating or just because they haven't communicated or touched a place where we could see them.
Is that now a bigger threat to the U.S. homeland than Al-Qaeda?
Yes. Yeah. The threat that ISIL poses to the United States is very different in kind, in type, in degree than Al-Qaeda. ISIL is not your parents' Al-Qaeda. It's a very different model.
Why is ISIS so powerful?
Well, they have adopted a model that takes advantage of social media in a way to crowdsource terrorism. They have invested about the last year in pushing a message of poison, primarily through Twitter, but other parts of social media, that is a siren song with two dimensions. They are preaching through social media to troubled souls, urging them to join their so-called caliphate in Syria and Iraq, or if you can't join, kill where you are. And Twitter is a valuable enterprise because it works to sell shoes or to sell ideas. It works to sell this message to troubled souls. With Al-Qaeda, if you wanted to consume their propaganda, you had to go find it somewhere on the web. You'd read their magazine. If you want to talk to a terrorist, you might send an email in to their magazine and hope that somebody answers you. ISIL has changed that model entirely because ISIL is buzzing on your hip, right? That message is being pushed all day long, and if you want to talk to a terrorist, they're right there on Twitter direct messaging for you to communicate with. It's the reason we have these investigations all across the United States. That year of investment is producing a warped view of the world. The people that ISIL's trying to reach are people that Al-Qaeda would never use as an operative.
Why is that?
Because they are often unstable, troubled drug users, and ISIL also does something that Al-Qaeda would never do. They'll vet an operative by tasking them, right? Give them an assignment, go kill somebody, as a way of checking out whether they are a real person or an informant of some kind.
So when ISIS publicly puts out there in social media, if you can't come over to Iraq and Syria and fight with us, go out there and kill U.S. military personnel or law enforcement officers, you take that seriously?
Very.
You told us recently that you and your colleagues thwarted a July 4th attack or attacks, right?
Correct.
What can you tell us about that?
Not much. There were a number of, and what's interesting about the ISIL model there too is the normal terms of inspired, directed, or enabled blend together with ISIL because they're just pushing. They're like a devil on somebody's shoulder saying kill, kill, kill all day long. So figuring out whether someone was directed or inspired or enabled is actually a waste of time in many cases. There were a number of people who were bent on engaging in attacks in the United States, killing innocent people, timed to the July 4th holiday. And thanks to great work, not just by the FBI, but by our partners in state and local and federal law enforcement, it was disrupted.
And that's why you've concluded now that ISIS represents the major threat to the U.S. homeland as far as terrorism is concerned.
Right. And one of the reasons I say that is the sheer volume. Right? Again, I have investigations, the FBI's investigations related to this threat all across the country. Right? There are hundreds of investigations. We're trying to understand where somebody is on the spectrum between a consumer of this poison on Twitter to an actor who's about to try and murder innocent people, and evaluate where are they on that spectrum. We have hundreds of people we're looking at on that spectrum. The ISIL tweeters in Syria have 21,000 English language followers. Hundreds of those people, probably thousands, are in the United States. And the other challenge we face is, again, totally unlike your typical Al-Qaeda model, is what we call the flash to bang, is both short and unpredictable with ISIL. That is, often an operative will have an idea to do something, say on July 4th, and wake up on June 2nd and say, you know, I'm not waiting. Today's the day I'm going to go kill people, which poses an additional challenge for us conducting investigations.